Good day, everyone. So now let's all learn about the different kinds of control volume. But before that, but before that, let's have a recap of what does control volume means. Okay, so control volume is a mathematical abstraction employed in the process of creating of mathematical models of physical process. Okay, so control volume is a volume in space of special interest for particular analysis. So this analysis can be used, for example, to determine the rate of change of momentum for a fluid. Okay, so now let's move on to the different kinds of control volume. Okay, control volume has three different kinds. So these are the fixed, non-deforming, the moving, and the last is the deforming control volume. Okay, so first is we have the fixed non-deforming control volume. Generally, this type of control volume is the type that is used for most fluid mechanics problems. Okay, so in addition, for this case, the volume is constant and hence the mass is constant. Physically, the meaning is that volume flow rate in and the volume flow rate out have to equal. So example of this is the pipe. Okay, so next kind of control volume is the moving control volume. So moving control volume, as with a stationary control volume, there is a fluid that is moving through the control volume. Okay, so however, in this case, the volume, the control volume is moving. So an example of this kind is, of control volume is the jet jet engine. So in order to analyze a moving control volume, you will need to use relative motion. As a result, there will be a relative velocity and then absolute velocity. So the relative velocity will be the velocity of the fluid moving through control volume, observed by an observer moving with the control volume. On the other hand, the absolute velocity. So the absolute velocity is observed at the fixed point in space by an observer. So generally, now when we are solving a fluid mechanics problems, we can use a fixed control volume. However, there can be cases when you will need to have a moving control volume. So Mountuna, for example, is if you want to analyze a jet engine or a rocket, you will need to use a moving control volume. And finally, the last is you may need to use a deforming control volume. So the last kind of control volume is the deforming control volume. So deforming control volume is used to solve a problem. So when we are analyzing deforming control volume, the following form of the continuity equation would need to be used. So an example of when a deforming control volume would be used is when you are analyzing a deflating balloon. So an example of this kind of control volume, which is the deforming control volume, is when we are analyzing a deflating balloon. Okay, so those are the three basic kinds of control volume: the fixed non-deforming control volume, the moving control volume, and the deforming control volume. So I hope you learned a lot of things about sa kung gipang discuss, and thank you for watching. Thank you so much, and I know that you learned a lot. Thank you, and God bless everyone.